When the history books are written about us, if we fail this test, the kids in 2100 are just not going to believe their eyes. They're like, wait, hold on a second. So this guy during the campaign said he was going to be a dictator on day one. And those motherfuckers elected him anyhow. And then he told them that he was going to seek a third term, and people laughed it off and they said, don't pay attention or that's a distraction. And then he did it. What were they thinking? This proud 250-year heritage, you guys blew it.
Hello and welcome to the Bulwark podcast. I'm your host, Tim Miller. It is Friday. I need some therapy, so I brought in an old friend. He's a former Democratic congressman from El Paso. He runs Powered by People, which registers and mobilizes voters in Texas, and also works to make long-term changes in the state's electorate. That's going to be needed. He's also on Substack now. Everybody's on Substack. It's Beto O'Rourke. What's happening, Beto?
Good to be with you. I'm here in El Paso. It's an absolutely gorgeous day out there. And soon headed to Denton, Texas. We're doing these town halls all over the state of Texas. And we're going to be at this place called Anderson's. It's a brewery on Saturday. So I'm excited to be getting out there and to be with people right now.
We got some Dallas suburbs listeners. Get out to Denton and, have a beer, hang out with Beto tomorrow. So you say you've been doing the town halls. What's the vibe like out there among the people?
Man, I got to tell you, it feels so good just on a personal level, not to be watching or waiting or hoping or praying, but to be out there with people. And, there's certainly something cathartic and therapeutic about it, right? For everyone concerned, because I'll talk for 10 or 15 minutes and then the microphone goes around the room, and anyone, we don't screen for party affiliation. We don't check the questions ahead of time. Anyone who has anything they want to say is able to do that. And from those conversations, not only am I learning a lot about what's on the minds of people in Wichita Falls, where we just held one, or Rice University in Houston, where we just had one, but everyone else in the room is listening to their neighbors and folks in the community. And they may find common cause. They may understand from someone who's drawn a different conclusion on an issue that they care about, how they got there. There's something really powerful in that. And then we also, for our group Powered by People, which does voter registration and uses relational organizing to stay in touch with newly registered voters, we also recruit volunteers from those meetings. We say, hey, we've had a great conversation today and we learned a lot. If you want to now take action, which I believe is the antidote to despair and the key to victory and fundamental to building long-term political power, then sign up with us. We'll train you to become a volunteer deputy registrar to register voters. We'll train you in our program, and then we'll send you out there with other volunteers, and you can do the work right now. No waiting for 2026 or 2028 if anyone's actually doing that. You can do the work right now. So I think that's essentially the formula, at least as I understand it, is you've got to meet the moment in the moment. You got to get out there, whatever the fuck it is. If it's a hands-off rally, if it's going to the school board and speaking up at the public comment section, if it's coming to one of these town halls or holding a town hall yourself, if it's any of those things, do it. We need that right now. There's real power in coming together. And as Lincoln said, public sentiment is everything. And when you get people coming together in numbers larger and larger, they begin to influence and shape public sentiment on the things that we care most about. And I think that gives us ultimately the power to overcome these challenges. But at the same time, you've got to be patiently and persistently building that political power. Democrats, at least in Texas, have sucked at this forever. Colin Allred's running. Let's get excited. Wendy Davis is running. Beto O'Rourke's running. That's great. But even better is doing the work year in, year out to register voters, stay in touch with them, make sure they turn out. Republicans have been excellent at this in Texas and in other parts of the country. And the outcomes show just how effective they've been. So we've got to learn from that. So meet it in the moment, but also do the long-term work that we're going to need to win and hold political power over the long term.
I love this. You're quoting Lincoln. It all sounds nice. But I need a little emo Beto to help get me there. Okay, I need to figure out, because let's just be real. I mean, you were out there last year. You're right. When we talked last time, it was August. I think it was convention. Was last time we had a podcast was during the Democratic convention, and you were at like the University of North Texas, meeting with students. You're on the road. You're talking to me about your listening habits, all those hours on the highway, driving across Texas, and then the election happens. Texas goes backwards for the first time in a while, right? Like first time in a few cycles. It trended back towards the Republicans at the presidential and Senate level. And like, you're back out there in Denton. I mean, did you take a week and go, fuck this? This is a waste of time. Like, why am I even doing this? Like, what is the point? I'm gonna move to Spain with my kid and like family, and like we'll just call it. None of that. You didn't have that for a minute.
No, I didn't, and I don't think you do. And I listened to your show. I don't think anyone that you have on the show.
I have some bad afternoons. All right. I gotta set up. I gotta show up here at 9 a.m. to tape this thing every day. But sometimes in the afternoon, I'm under the covers. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm reading a sad book. All right. Hey, sometimes I don't want to do it.
Right. We all have our moments for sure. But I think when push comes to shove, we all show up. We stand up to be counted. We all know this is a moment of truth. And we cannot be found wanting. Every generation before ours has somehow pulled this off. We're 249 years into this experiment. And man, we have been tested, from the very start, the revolution and breaking away from the most powerful empire on the planet at the time. You get to the courthouse in Appomattox in 1865, hundreds of thousands of people over many years gave their lives to end the institution of slavery and to bind the country back together. You have, people from New Orleans and El Paso enlisting in World War II and landing on those beaches in June of 44 in Normandy to fight fascism half a world away to defend democracy here at home. 64 and 65, civil rights and voting rights. So now it comes down to us. And we are facing the greatest test, not of our generation or of our time, but probably of any time in this country's history, maybe going back to the Civil War. And so when you look at it that way, you are so fucking lucky to be alive right now and to have the chance to come through. There have been precious few generations. There's this great speech that LBJ gives in 65 after John Lewis has just been beaten nearly to death crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge. 8 days later, Johnson convenes this joint session of Congress, and he says, as it was at Lexington and Concord, as it was at Appomattox, so it is today. These brave Americans willing to lay down their lives so that we can realize our promise to one another. That's us, man. And I'm not saying you or I or John Lewis.
We never had
this is our generation to come through.
We never had an opponent this stupid, though. I mean, say what you want about Robert E. Lee, but he was a worthy adversary. I mean, you got to wake. It's like, really? We're going back to this? Like the stupidest American after he's been convicted of crimes? And like the people of Texas look at that and say, yeah, we're going to give him more votes than we did the last time. I mean, that's a little dispiriting. No,
you can look at the opposition and be dumbfounded because they are so incompetent, they are so corrupt, they are so craven. They're surrounded by these quislings who are making their separate pieces and deals with the administration, whether it's law firms or universities or the power brokers and the billionaires. But you also have to look at us, and I don't mean just Democrats, but yes, especially Democrats, but the pro-democracy, pro-rule of law, pro-U.S. Constitution side. What was on offer for voters in 2024? If ever, and I know every election is a change election, but if ever people wanted and were screaming for change, it was in 2024. But if you knew nothing else, and if you could be forgiven for being so busy because you're working so hard and you're raising your kids and you're taking care of your folks and fuck politics, I just don't pay attention. All I know is that guy represents change, and those folks look like more of the same. And this country is not working for me right now, and I don't need any more of the same. I need some fucking change in my life. And so I think we have to look in the mirror and accept where we have failed. And we failed. We had one job in 2024, and we failed. And that's not on Donald Trump. It's not on the voters who voted for Donald Trump. It's on those who are offering the alternative. And so we have to learn from that, right? And we have to both stop him, and then we have to overcome him and replace him in elections peacefully, democratically, and nonviolently with the change that people are looking for in this country.
Yeah. When I look back, the more I've thought about it, we have 5 months distance from it, and look back at our failings, and I think maybe something where you could provide some insight when you said there, like, let's look at what was on offer from this side, from the Democrats, for the anti-Trump, whatever you want to call it. And I think the thing that it really comes down to, when I was talking to James Carville before the election, and I was like, everybody knew it was on his whiteboard on the Clinton campaign. Change or more of the same. It's the economy, stupid. Don't forget health. What was on Kamala's whiteboard? And I asked him that, like, what's on this campaign's whiteboard? And this isn't meant to like be an attack on her or whatever. It's just like, let's just be honest about it. And he couldn't answer that question. And it was like a couple days before the election. And that kept sticking in my head. I'm like, I'm worried about this. Like that's something that worried me. And all of the other stupid stuff, like she didn't go on Joe Rogan. We didn't do this. We didn't do that. Like, to me, it's like that, right? And I feel like your 2018 campaign and it wasn't successful, obviously, but it did way better than Democrats had in the past. I feel like people knew what you were offering. I feel like people could describe what Beto was offering. And I don't know if the Democrats have really had a presidential campaign that did that successfully since 2008, honestly. And but my question is, like, what is it though? I think we're still kind of in a time for searching on that front. You're seeing a little bit of it from AOC. Ezra Klein's out there talking about abundance. I don't know. Like, what is it? What do you think it is?
I think the only way you find it is by being with people. In the when I ran for Congress, long shot bid in 2012 against a 8-term incumbent, wildly outspent. It was a 5-person primary, and I won it without a runoff. And I won it by knocking on doors. And the knocking doors, it's not just the numbers, and it's not just the effort, and it's not just that voter meeting you and learning your name. It's also learning from them what's most important to them. No pollster, no consultant group, no focus group would have told me what a veteran told me. I knocked on his door. He said, I can't get into the VA. They told me to call back next year. And this was in January of 2012 for his PTSD treatment. This guy served us in Vietnam, came back, damaged and wounded, now needs help, and we were absolutely failing on our end of the bargain. Next door, a similar story. Next door, it's a widow telling me about her husband who took his own life. I made fixing the VA the number one issue. And not everyone in El Paso is a veteran. Not everyone in El Paso has a family member who's a veteran. But people care about veterans. I cared about veterans. And I think people more broadly understood, man, if this guy is going to fight this hard for these people who've gotten this fucked by their government, I know he's going to fight for me on the issue that I care about. And we won that race. When I ran for city council, I was knocking on the west side and first door, I've given my pitch, and the woman says, that's great, Beto, but there's this canyon behind my house, Wrestler Canyon. They're about to develop it. I don't want it developed. Second house tells me the same thing. The third house, I knock on the door and I said, hey, my name is Beto O'Rourke, and I'm here to save Wrestler Canyon. You've got to listen to people. And that's why these town halls
wait
are
a minute.
so
I didn't know you were a NIMBY, Beto. I thought I finally found my first. I finally found my first. We're crossways with each other for the first time in 2 interviews. I didn't know you were a NIMBY. Okay, we'll have to talk about that.
Let me finish this point, though. Okay. These town halls that we're holding, I just think are fundamental. Democracy, what the fuck does it mean? Democracy is people. And bringing people together in this deeply divided, isolated, polarized digital age where we're just consumed by our devices and the feeds that we're getting on them. That is some profoundly powerful stuff. And the other power there is that Republican members of Congress right now fear Donald Trump more than they fear anything else. You have to introduce the fear of their constituents and their reelection. And Democrats fear being in front of people right now because, to the question you just posed, what's the answer? What's the solution? I don't know what the fuck. How are we going to do this? People are going to show up. They're going to be mad. They're going to want me to fight back against Trump. I'm just one member of Congress. I don't want to face that. I think all the more reason that you go in front of your constituents, because no matter how brilliant you are, you don't have all the answers. And if you really believe in this democracy, if you really believe in people, you'll bring them together. You'll listen to them. You'll learn from them, and you will form common cause and go out and do the work and fight together. So I think bringing people together, having these town halls is absolutely essential. And I think from that, Tim, we are going to learn and hear and even know the language, the exact words that people are feeling right now and need to be reflected back in the campaigns that are run in 26 and 28. You don't ever lose your core convictions, that your purpose for being and wanting to serve, but that's part of it. The other part of it is just being exquisitely attuned to the people that you want to represent and fight for. And there's no shortcut. You can't hire somebody. You can't spend enough money. You can't put enough time on social media to get there. You got to be there physically with people and hear them out. And so that's why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's plenty of bad things about Trump, but those stupid rallies he had were his kind of version of town halls, and he was workshopping stuff all the way back to 2015. What do people cheer for? Wasn't the stuff we're cheering for, but that's where a lot of his messaging came from. So there is something to that. I wonder what you hear. I guess I had a mini town hall by showing up to Jazz Fest yesterday and having people come up and talk to me. And a woman came up and talked to me. She owns a kind of like a tchotchke shop here in New Orleans. And she's like, I'm fucked because of the China tariffs. Like, I am fucked. Like, I don't even know what I'm going to do. Like, so much of the stuff that we source for this small business, it's been around 60 something years, comes from China. She's like, I'd love to get stuff from America, but like, there's just not enough stuff. And do we really want to be making these little tourist tchotchkes in America anyway? Probably not. Right. So that was one thing that came up. What are you hearing about? Or what are your thoughts on that? And also what else are you hearing about?
It reminds me of, I was in Iowa in 2019 and spending a lot of time with farmers and growers and folks in the ag community. And I visited this one family farm, and the two brothers took me out to this giant rotting pile of soybeans. And what struck me in listening to them and understanding both just the pain and the pride that had been hurt, this is what they do and they're not able to do it, the economic loss, the threat to their future of being able to hold on to that farm, was the fact that it didn't seem like Trump was taking much of a political hit for the hurt that he was doing to them. I listened to the Daily yesterday, and they interviewed another farmer in Iowa who's absolutely getting crushed by these Trump tariffs and the reciprocal Chinese tariffs that I think are at 120%. On what she's trying to sell. But anyhow, and it was unclear at the end of the interview whether she held Trump responsible. It kind of gets back to what you and I were talking about earlier. She wanted change. She wants action. Maybe this isn't, she says, I wish Trump would understand what's happening to me right now, but I know he's trying to do something. He's trying to change something. It's amazing the goodwill and the faith that he has engendered. And maybe it's the cult of personality stuff, but it maybe also is just a reflection of how badly broken our institutions, our government, our system, our society is for so many people who are that desperate for change that, like, they say, you know what, I'll take the hit on soybeans. Maybe I'll lose the farm. I'll turn a blind eye to the mass deportations and the loss of due process and this absolute attack on the Constitution, because this shit has been going on for decades, and Democrats and Republicans both say they're going to do something and no one ever does. This fucker is doing something, at least. I may not like every part of it, but he's doing it. So I think there's that dynamic. At these town halls, I hear from people, a veteran in Wichita Falls who stood up and said, hey, Beto, tell me about the 83,000 people that they're going to cut from the VA, most of whom, by the way, are themselves veterans. How is that going to improve wait times or the care or the service that I get? And I don't know if that guy was a Republican or a Democrat. We don't screen for the town halls. Another woman stands up, asks about Medicaid. We're already the least insured state in the country. We lead the nation in childhood diabetes deaths. We're at the epicenter of this maternal mortality crisis. If they cut Medicaid further, what is going to happen and who is it going to hurt? So people see the train wreck playing out in real time. They're really concerned about it. They ask these questions, but Tim, they also ask a lot of questions about the Democratic Party. Where are the Democrats? Why aren't they fighting? What's going on here? Back when the CR, the government funding debate was taking place, and almost every Democratic member of the House but one stood strong and together. And Chuck Schumer signaled that he and the Senate Democrats were going to do the same. And then he caved at the end of the day and cowed by whatever pressure he seemed to feel. Man, that was like a stake in the heart of so many people who are hurting right now and are being hurt by Trump and want to see somebody fight back. And so I think there's some real disappointment, not just lingering from 2024, but from what is happening or not happening in 2025, and a real hunger for those who will step up and take the fight to Trump.
All right. I'm gonna be dark one more time. Then we'll I don't know. Then maybe we'll change. I don't know. Maybe I'll be dark the whole podcast. We'll see how it goes. I listen to all that. It sounds great, but then I start to think there's something underneath it that gives me a little despair, right? Which is, number one, like the woman's farm is going to go under, and she's with Trump. Like, what hope is there that that people that have smaller challenges, turn on him, right? Than that. Like that is something that concerns me. I also think I think it's great they're doing the town halls. I'm jealous, actually. I want to be around more people. Being in my hole here, I think sometimes is bad for my mental health. But the Democrats' biggest problem actually is reaching the people that aren't showing up to stuff like this, right? Like where you got to go to them, like you got to somehow get in front of their face, right? And like, do you have any thoughts on that side of the ledger? Because I do think that was another thing you were good at in the 2018 campaign, and the Democrats have just been really bad at recently. If you just look at the numbers, like the people who are paying attention the least, the most casual voters, Obama crushed with them, and now Trump crushed with them this time, right? So it's been a sea change there. Like, what are your thoughts about that? Like, there are a lot of people out there that aren't going to show up to the town hall,
Yeah. Two things. One, you got to physically go to where people are. So I mentioned Wichita Falls earlier. It's about an hour, 45-minute drive northwest of Dallas. Not easy to get to, not particularly close to a big city. And so when we went there, I reached out to the Wichita County Democratic Party, the Wichita County Republican Party, the Republican Women's Study Club, the VF, everybody, the ISD Booster Club. This is a town hall. It's not partisan. I'm not going to drive home a political message. I just want to hear from everybody. Come on out. We had 450 people show up. It was, for Wichita Falls, for any place, that was really significant. And Tim, a lot of those folks are folks who otherwise have been tuned out or turned off, but gave this thing a chance because it looked and felt different. The other thing, the second point, is you got to take it a step further. You've got to show up at the door of that person who didn't cast a ballot. In Texas, when I ran for governor in 22, 9 million registered, ready to go voters in Texas didn't cast a ballot. Abortion, the most obscene, restrictive abortion law in the country. Uvalde, 19 kids, 2 beautiful teachers shot down, murdered in that year. The most pressing, urgent issues were on the line in that election. 9 million people didn't show up. It's not that they're lazy. It's not that they don't care about those things. It's, to your point, that there hasn't been the work done to connect with them and to connect the dots about what matters to them in their lives and the people who are running these campaigns and the elections that will decide the outcomes. So we've got to go to where they are, like literally knocking on their doors, which we are doing. We're also showing up when I tell you we train our volunteers, we train them and then we deploy them where there are unregistered, likely Democrats, including on college campuses, engage with them in conversations, bring them onto the rolls. And this is a really important step that I don't know that many others are doing. We then say, after we register the person, hey, would you mind if I stayed in touch with you? And it's not going to come from the Democratic Party or even Powered by People. It'll just be me, the guy that just registered you. We just met eyeball to eyeball. Can I have your cell phone number? I'm going to text you in 30 days and see if your voter registration card has come in the mail. And I'm going to be your personal voting Sherpa. You have a question about voter ID or voting location, or because I'm a partisan organization, if you have a question about the candidates and their values and whether they connect with yours, I am your guy. And so our more than 1,300 volunteers connect with tens of thousands of voters in that way. And we want to continue to grow that program. Will it decide things in 2026? I don't know, probably not. Will it decide them in 2028? Who knows? But if you don't start building this stuff and stay on it persistently and consistently, it's just going to be the boom and bust cycle that we have lived and died through in Texas for the last 30 years. So you've got to do those two things. That you've got to go to where people are, whether it's the town halls or their front doors or the college campus wherever they are, you've got to be there.
Have you looked into cloning? Can we get a couple hundred Betos? I mean, Texas is pretty fucking big, you know? I mean, how many doors can you knock on? You know, you're just one guy.
254 counties. It's these volunteers who show up who are fucking amazing. Full-time jobs, you know, taking care of their kids, whatever they've got in their lives, they find the time to go out there in August when it's just sweltering in Houston, probably not unlike what it's like in New Orleans. And they're at the TSU campus or University of Houston campus, and they're out there talking to voters and registering them and staying in touch with them. It's really time consuming. It's not easy, but it is a really powerful connection that they make with these voters. So we have the numbers, and we're continuing to grow them. And again, these town halls also are a recruiting field for bringing on new volunteers. We're not going to do it online, right? You got to do it in person. I really think that's the secret. And I think everyone today is enamored of money and technology, and those have a place, but they can't, they're just a poor substitute for the real thing, people with people.
We're gonna keep that cloning idea though. Just, you know, that might be a technology that helps you, you know, get out, be in more places at once. I want to go to the actual news, you know, instead of getting in our feelings for the whole podcast. What is there something about the Trump administration? Obviously, there's been so much crazy stuff. What has struck you as the thing that's either the most alarming, most concerning, most maddening?
I think just the full frontal assault on the Constitution and the rule of law. You know, all the kind of hand-wringing before he took office about whether he would precipitate a constitutional crisis, you know, whether it would happen, what it would look like when it did. And now we are in it. And I think it's really hard. I don't know, Tim, if it seems like an abstraction to people. I don't know what folks at the Jazz Fest were saying about the constitutional crisis that we're in, or, you know, if it's too distant from people's lives. But I feel like that itself is kind of a patronizing, dickish way to think about our fellow Americans. I fully have faith in them that they get or soon will get exactly what is happening, that he's disregarding a co-equal branch of government, that it is only going to get worse. At some point, there will be a clash between Trump and some majority on the United States Supreme Court. And so, you know, you may, or one might feel powerless in that. You know, he's got a 6-3 majority there. He has both houses of Congress. He has a White House. He has the world's richest man. He has all of the social media platforms. Who the fuck am I to be able to do anything against that? And I've got to invoke Lincoln again and that idea of public sentiment. You know, 1965. So what is that? 60 years ago. You know, it's not an election year. Folks have been working on voting rights for 75 years. In 1890, the Congress had a Voting Rights Act before it, and the pro-democracy party at the time, which was the Republicans, fucked it up. They had the House, they had the Senate, they passed it in the House, it died on the horns of a filibuster in the Senate, and the president at the other time was like, you know what, I've got more important battles to fight, fuck this. So for 75 fucking years, you disenfranchised and basically decitizenized so many millions of our fellow Americans. In 1965, that march by John Lewis so galvanized the country. It was this catalytic shock to the conscience. And within 8 days, LBJ is able to bring the country together. And by that summer, he passes the Voting Rights Act. 75 years in the making, creates the first true multiracial democracy in American history. More recently, in 2018, you had family separation. It was this quote unquote zero tolerance policy by the first Trump administration. You make it 2,000 miles to this country at our border with your baby, and right when you get to what you thought would be your salvation, that child is literally ripped from your arms. You're deported back to Honduras, and that kid is placed in foster care in America. People rose up. We had this event in Tornillo, Texas. Congresswoman Veronica Escobar and myself and others helped to organize that. More than 1,000 people came from around the country. That was on, I believe, June 18th, Father's Day of 2018. That next week, Trump rescinds the family separation policy. It wasn't just because of the protest in Tornillo, but that protest and others and the influence on public opinion and the sentiment of the country, he just could not withstand that. So when I mention these town halls or these rallies, I think some people dismiss them as virtue signaling or empty gestures, or I'm glad that made you feel good, Beto, but what the fuck does that do? It actually does something. It begins to shape how other people see what is happening. And we don't have control of Fox News. We don't have control of the manosphere. We don't have control of a lot of the levers of power, but we do have one another. And if we do everything we can with what we have, where we are, I am confident that we are going to come through. It won't be easy. It may take us a while. It's not going to be Democrats. It's got to be the broadest possible coalition. But if we commit to it and if we continue to try, I'm confident we're going to get there.
This year, speak like a whole new you with Babbel, the language learning app that gets you talking. Learning a new language is the pathway to discovering new cultures. So why not embark on learning something new? Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons, handcrafted by over 200 language experts, get you to begin speaking your new language in 3 weeks or at whatever pace you choose. And because conversing is the key to really understanding each other in new languages, Babbel is designed using practical, real-world conversations. Spending months with private teachers is the old way of learning languages, and nothing screams tourist like holding the phone translation app up to your face all day. Babbel's tips and tools are inspired by the real stuff you actually need when communicating. With a focus on conversation, you'll be ready wherever you go. As mentioned in the podcast here today with Beto and in my conversation with David Packman yesterday, I am leaving the country. I'm not scared. I'm not going to live in an open air prison because of that fucking small-handed vulgarian trying to, scare us into traveling. So I'm going to Europe. We're going to learn. We're going to do a little Babbel. I don't know that I'm going to be ready to learn a whole new language. I got a lot of podcasting to do, but I'm going to do enough so that I can go into restaurants and order and not feel like a tourist. And I think that's a fun little escape and something that we're working on. And you should do it too. Why not? It's better than doom scrolling. Need proof that Babbel gets you talking? Studies from Yale, Michigan State, and other leading universities continue to prove Babbel works. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. Let's get more of you talking in a new language. Babbel is gifting our listeners 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/bulwark. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/bulwark, spelled BABBEL.com/bulwark. Babbel.com/bulwark. Rules and restrictions may apply. Hey, YouTube fam, if you want to support the Bulwark, the best way to do it is by becoming a YouTube Bulwark Plus member. The Bulwark is truly independent. We have no corporate overlords. We're not settling any dumb lawsuits with Trump. By joining, you help support our work, and you can get a bunch of perks right here on this platform. Ad-free content, bonus videos, live streams, and some emojis of me, which I guess some people want. So come join, come hang out, become a Bulwark YouTube Plus member, and I'll be seeing you in the comments. So behave. I want to talk about the immigration side of things and whether there's a catalytic opportunity for that now. Because, the picture you painted of the child separation thing is so powerful. And, we're here in this moment right now where we're sending these people to El Salvador. And I agree with you. The fact that people finally did speak up against this, and both on the legal side, but also in protests and in the media and Democratic politicians finally, I think has slowed down what they were planning on doing with El Salvador. I think that there's no doubt about that. Like, there were more planes that were supposed to be going to El Salvador, and that stopped. And yet there's still a couple hundred people that are there. Maybe some of them are really bad dudes. We don't know. It seems pretty certain that at least a couple of them are not. Such as, the one that I keep bringing up is the young man, Andre, who there's like a New York Post article on him yesterday. I don't know if you saw this, where it was like exclusive. Andre tried to come into the country once and he was deported. Then he tried to come into the country again. And I was like, okay. And then it was like a picture of him, and he's holding a giant stuffy teddy bear, and he's sitting under a rainbow arch of balloons. And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe there are fucking gangbangers out there cuddling teddy bears underneath a rainbow balloon arch. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe there's one gangbanger in the world that is a rapist who also loves to cuddle teddy bears. Seems pretty fucking unlikely, though. And they haven't given us any evidence. And I do wonder if you think that this is something that people can be catalyzed on.
I do, and it's all the more impressive because of the way that this has been set up. Should you stand with any of these purported gangbangers or terrorists, then the Trump administration, and Marco Rubio's done this, will say to the American public, well, whose side is Tim on? Is he on the side of the American families who have borne the brunt of these rapists and criminals and killers and animals? That's the language that they use. Or is he on your side? And so the fact that so many people have been able to get past that false frame and say, you know what, who the fuck knows? Because we don't know, because you have shared no information with the public. There's been no due process. There's been no constitutional protection that allows somebody to defend themselves and allows the public to understand the details of the alleged crime. We just don't know. And furthermore, when you were able to bridge what is happening to that young man, or to Kilmar Abrego Garcia, or we just learned today about a young man named Christian who was brought here as a child. And we now find, thanks to one of these great federal judges, that he's also been wrongfully deported. And there was a standing court order that said explicitly, you cannot deport this guy. And the administration did it anyhow.
And in this case, it's also worth just mentioning in this case in particular, because I've been meaning to bring it up. The guy, I guess, was arrested for possession of cocaine. I think we just have to be clear-eyed about this. I don't know. There are a bunch of guys in the manosphere who voted for Trump who probably used cocaine. Like, I bet Joe Rogan's done some cocaine. Theo Von's certainly done some cocaine. Like, do we want the fucking punishment for cocaine use to be being sent to a foreign torture prison?
Life imprisonment.
Life imprisonment with no access to a lawyer? Is that what we want for the country? Because, okay, I don't know. I think that some of the listeners to the Theo Von podcast should probably be pretty worried about who's going to be banging down their door tomorrow.
Yes. And that's, I think, the jump that people are able to make, or the bridge that they are seeing, which is, you do this to the least of us. And there's a reason you pick on the tattooed, quote unquote, gangbanger, or there's a reason you pick on the trans person, or there's a reason that you pick on this vulnerable or marginalized member of the society, because who wants to stand next to them? They're unpopular. Who wants to stand next to them? But people are able to understand that this is the way this shit works. This is how authoritarians build power. They find that group on the margins and they exclude them and they make them the scapegoat. And then they take the next group, and then they take the next group. And pretty soon they come for you. And what's amazing, you mentioned just like the bizarre, blundering behavior of Donald Trump personally and the administration, is that they say this shit out loud. I'm going to go after the homegrown ones next. What does that mean? It means you were born here. You are a U.S. citizen under the Constitution and any interpretation of the law. And you too are vulnerable to deportation without due process, to a hellhole prison, the largest on the planet, which you will go into and from which you will never, ever emerge. We have to make sure that every American understands that, whether you voted for Trump or not, whether you would vote for him again if he somehow were able to run again. You've got to know just what's on the line. And I know you may think I'm naive, Tim, but I just think if people in America know the truth, I believe in them, they're going to do the right thing. I mentioned every test we've come through before. Look, it took us a long fucking time to mount the defense and then the offense against fascism in the 1930s and the 1940s. It took us a long fucking time to deal with slavery, a long fucking time to deal with citizenship, civil rights, and voting rights from the end of the 19th century up until 1964 and 1965. But at every turn, we came through. And so are we going to be the generation 250 fucking years into this thing that fucks it up and loses it forever? No, it just cannot be. And so, I mean, that's what you asked me earlier. Like, do you ever just want to give up and move to Spain? I mean, do I get down sometimes? Absolutely. But fuck no, man. I want to be in this fight with every fiber of my being. And I know that there are millions, tens of millions out there who feel the same way that I do. Let's just keep doing what we can. Let's find ways to come together in this fight, and let's never lose hope, because you lose hope, that's exactly what they want you to do. So I am encouraged that those federal judges, and I do think the shaping of public sentiment is beginning to place a check on the out of control, unlawful Trump administration, but it's not enough. We've got to do more.
I don't think you're naive. I'm just trying to find the doubt. I know there's doubt in there. I'm just trying to find, you're the I don't know. Did you ever paint your fingernails black back when you were in a band? Like, I'm just trying to find that Beto somewhere in there.
Oh,
like
man. I was just telling a friend, we went to a movie with a friend last night. I saw Pink Floyd at Pompeii, which was just amazing, right? I'm not a huge Pink Floyd fan. I don't know their catalog, but the music was just amazing. And it was dark, right? And it was disturbing. And this friend and I were talking about, music that we grew up with, punk rock or the sad, mopey stuff like the Smiths. Yeah. And I said, you know what? I have a really hard time with sad music because I'll just take that slide all the way through. So yeah, I mean, all of us deal with darkness. All of us are tempted by despair. All of us have to find ways, though, to overcome it. For me, I don't listen to sad music so much. I get out there and move my body. I hike, I run. I get out there and I'm with people. When I do a town hall or when I spend all day at the University of Texas at El Paso campus registering voters. And as you know, Tim, some people are like, hey, great, I'd love to get registered. And others are like, go fuck yourself. And some people just don't respond to the entreaty. Despite all of that, and maybe because of all of that, and I'm sweat through my shirt because it's so damn hot here, I feel so good at the end of the day. I am so up. I'm so optimistic. I believe and I know that we can do this. If I stay at home or I'm in my office and I'm online too much and I'm reading the headlines, I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, are we going to make it? Maybe not. So you've got to be with people. I know you're a fan, but Joe Strummer has this line, without people, you're nothing. And it's absolutely true. And for those who mouth the word democracy is people. And if you're not with the people, you're not going to win this.
You mentioned, I love that. I'm trying to break. You're unbreakable, Beto. I've gotten John Lovett to cry twice on this podcast. It's not going to work for you, I guess. None of my tricks are working. All right. You mentioned one thing that you did a Substack post on this that I wanted to get to because you kind of alluded to it during that inspiring filibuster about the Trump 2028 element. And I think what you wrote is important because there is I think that there's good reason to look at this as two fucking ways, right? It's like, this is a troll. Don't let him troll you. Don't play into his hand, and just ignore it and laugh at him and point and laugh. I think there's something to be said for that. There's also something to be said for the fact that, I don't know, pretty much everything that he's said he might do, he's tried to do. And so maybe we should take it pretty seriously, even though he'll be, 83 years old or however old they'll be. Talk about your perspective on that. He's selling the hats that I mentioned. He's selling the hats now. We can put it up on the YouTube. He's selling fucking Trump 2028 hats now. So, it's not just, it's a real, it's a gag. He's putting it out there.
Yeah. I believe that past behavior is always the best predictor of future performance. At the end of his last term, he literally did everything he could within his power to illegally hold on to that office, despite the fact that he was obliterated at the polls, despite the fact that his Department of Homeland Security and everybody who had purview over that election said it was the cleanest, the safest, the fairest in American history. And, not only did he incite violence, as we know from the reporting now, he also tried to get his generals and the United States military and any other source of power in this country to work at his behest to overturn that election and illegally restore him to power. Who the fuck thinks that he's not going to do the exact same thing at the end of this administration? When the history books are written about us, if we fail this test, the kids in 2100 are just not going to believe their eyes. They're like, wait, hold on a second. So this guy during the campaign said he was going to be a dictator on day one. And those motherfuckers elected him anyhow. And then he told them that he was going to seek a third term and people laughed it off and they said, don't pay attention or that's a distraction. And then he fucking did it. What the fuck were they thinking? This proud 250-year heritage, you guys blew it. So we absolutely have to, and I do take this threat very, very seriously. And to mount the response in 2028 is to fail. it has to be mounted today. And it's why I've been talking about it. I know others are as well. And again, why I'm encouraged by what the federal courts are doing, not all of them, but many of them. Not only are the decisions important, and not only have we been surprised in some cases by the Supreme Court's validation of those decisions, but back to public sentiment, it really begins to shape the story that people tell one another about what is happening in this country at this time. So yeah, it is a very, very real threat, and we should take it seriously.
I totally agree that it is a real threat and we should take it seriously. I also think we should point at him and laugh. I think I presented you a false choice. I think that it is important to say these guys are fucking clowns, and you can't let them own you. You know, I had a conversation with David Pakman on YouTube yesterday because he's born in Argentina, and he did this video about how immigration lawyers have told him he probably shouldn't travel abroad. And when I first saw it, I was like, this is a little alarmist. You know, this is like we shouldn't, because I don't want people to be scared. I don't want people to feel like they're in a prison in their country because of this fucking ass clown. You know, I think that so far he's failing at pretty much everything that he's doing. And so I think it's important to point and laugh at him rather than be scared of him. That said, particularly if you are a straight white person who like is a citizen and has enough resources, right? Like somebody, like for me, a gay white person, frankly, like I'm not scared of him. I'm going to travel to Europe. Like if they want to try to detain me, okay, like we'll see what happens. If I'm the first U.S. citizen he sends to Sakat, then I know that Beto will be out there fighting for me. But I don't see it happening. But like on the other hand, if you were born in Argentina, like if you're here on a green card, if you're here on a work visa, if you're trans, like the threat is really serious. Right. And so I think we have to be able to hold those thoughts in our head, right? Like he's an incompetent clown that you should make fun of. And also, like for particularly marginalized people, for certain groups of people, like the threat is really a lot greater now than it's been. And I think that's kind of a hard thing for people to hold in their head at the same time. But I don't know. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think you're so right. I mean, you look at the blustering buffoons that rose to power in Europe in the 1930s, who were just the butt of everyone's joke. They were criminally clownish. No one took them seriously. No one saw the threat. And then they're in power. And you look at other tyrants who wielded power and just were absolutely destructive and incompetent in managing their country, leading to the deaths by starvation of millions in Russia, for example, just to use one. So, you write these clowns off at your peril, but there is nothing wrong with pointing out just how stupid and dumb and laughably losing they are in everything that they want to do. I mean, the one Signal Gate scandal after another by Pete Hegseth, the private makeup room before he goes on TV appearances. Here we are in Texas, 2 kids have died of measles, and it's been 2 decades since a child lost their life to that virus in America. And RFK, what a fucking idiot, a dangerous, deadly one at that. You can go across the board, Sean Duffy, Kristi Noem, they're all clowns. But to your other point, they are clowns who are causing the deaths and the real pain of our fellow Americans. I mentioned to you, I was at Rice the other day, and one of the students came up and said, Beto, so many of my fellow students have had their visas withdrawn. I know you hear about it happening at Columbia and these East Coast. It's happening right here in Texas. Who's going to fight for them? Another young woman came up and said, hey, my parents came here undocumented. I don't know what's going to happen to them. I don't know what's going to happen to me. I don't know if we end up in that hellhole in El Salvador. What's going to happen to me? Again, these town halls and that person being able to tell their story, not just to me, but to every other person, including those, as you described, who enjoy tremendous privilege in this country. And in the long line of people who will be targeted, attacked, and terrible things done to them, they're probably the last on the list. But the last on the list is hearing about the people who are first in line and are bearing the brunt of it right now. And I think that builds solidarity. And from that solidarity, you have real strength. And that's what we need at this moment. So again, real power in sharing these stories. And you asked about what will catalyze on immigration or any other number of issues. I think it is exactly that. John Lewis crossing the bridge, why did people know about it? The TV cameras were there. They beamed it across the country and around the world. It created so much pressure on Johnson. He had no choice but to move forward. We've got to, and I know we haven't found it yet, and I can't tell you what it looks like, but we have got to find whatever version of that exists. And God bless the people who are out there doing it right now, whether that's Bernie Sanders or AOC or Tim Walz or anybody who's out busting their ass. And maybe a certain path or route doesn't bring us to where we want to be, but at least they have gone out there and tried to figure it out and brought people along, during the path. So, I think we've all just got to do what we can. That's just the MO right now.
For sure. I've mentioned this book before, but for the listeners or folks who forgot, there was this book called The Diary of a Man in Despair, which is a diary of basically the Wall Street Journal Republican of Nazi Germany, and like him watching all this happen. And it's just my main takeaway from it was just how he thought Hitler was a clown. He was totally an uncultured buffoon and a clown, and we don't need to be scared of this. The smart guys will be able to control him. Anyway, people are looking for some Nazi reading over the weekend. I recommend it. You mentioned RFK. I've been trying to get to this. There's so much crazy shit happening. But have you seen the story about the Autism registry? This is another thing that's fucking insane. You mentioned the 2 deaths from measles, but I guess the point of this is that now HHS, they're going to try to backfill some evidence for RFK's crackpot theory that vaccines cause autism. So they're going to create now, I guess, a government, or they are aspiring to create a government registry of people with autism and get medical records and stuff to support this thesis. Is essentially what they're up to.
Yeah, fuck that guy. It's so disgusting to prey upon the families of autistic Americans and offer them and hold out this false hope, whether it's through the registry or I read some headline that he's committed to finding the source of autism, the cause of autism by the end of the year. Yeah. Disregard all the, thousands of studies and scientists and doctors and frankly, parents of autistic children who have devoted their lives to this, just get out of the way. RFK Jr. is on top of this. How cruel and careless to these families who really are struggling, who really want answers, and they deserve them, but they certainly don't deserve this. It is the greatest show of disrespect that I can imagine. And I understand and don't judge people who feel hope at what RFK Jr. is doing. But finally, we talked about institutions and government and things that were supposed to work for people that failed them. Maybe this guy's going to break through because nothing else has worked so far. So, I'm going to give him, every ounce of hope I have. And you just know that is going to be crushed at the end of the day. It's what all of them are doing. Tariffs are going to bring back your jobs in Michigan or Indiana or Ohio, sending people without due process to concentration camps in El Salvador is going to fix our immigration system. These are all, presentations of false hope that people who are understandably desperate, given how badly this country has failed them, are holding on to right now. So we have to show them that not only does this stuff not work, but that there is something better on offer from those who believe in Constitution, rule of law, and our democracy. Democrats and the largest possible coalition around them possible.
One last point, Laugh. I'm curious if you're hearing anything in particular at this point from people on tariffs, but Trump did an interview with Time magazine. The reality has not punctured the Oval Office yet, but I just want to read from you a couple of things that he said this morning about tariffs, or published this morning. We are a department store, and we set the price. I meet with the companies, and then I set a fair price, what I consider to be a fair price, and they can pay it or they don't have to pay it. They don't have to do business with the United States, but I set a tariff on countries. We're a department store, a giant department store, the biggest department store in history. Everybody wants to come in and take from us. They're going to come in and going to pay a price for taking our treasure, for taking our jobs, for doing all these things. I would wonder, listening to that, whether he's ever been in a department store, but I guess we know that he has because a court has adjudicated that he sexually assaulted a woman in a department store. But I don't think he really understands how things work. And I think that there's going to be a lot of pain for people with regards to these tariffs. And I just wonder what you think is a way to talk about this that resonates with people, because it is complicated. It's so complicated. The president of the United States doesn't even understand how it works, apparently.
Yeah, and I got to say, it doesn't help when Democrats or those who are opposed to this policy and to the deep damage and pain that he is causing to the folks around us kind of equivocate on this or aren't clear about it, that these tariffs hurt. They're going to destroy the American economy. The prices that you cared about in 2024 are only going to get higher and higher and higher. Those things that you want for yourself and your kids are just going to be more and more out of reach for you. This is a tax, a massive tax. It's not a fucking department store. It is a tax that you and your family are going to be paying for as long as these tariffs are in place. This is really, really bad. So I think you have to say that. And I think you also have to elevate the voices of people who are being hurt by this in real time. You mentioned the woman at the tchotchke shop in New Orleans. I mean, what does she do next? She's going to go out of business. A soybean farmer in Iowa. What does she do next? She's going to lose that farm and is not going to be able to pass it on to her kids. The folks who can't afford things that they used to be able to depend on, what are they going to do next? As we become more isolated economically and through our alliances around the rest of the world, life in every single way is going to become more expensive. The way we engage with the rest of the world, whether militarily or diplomatically or economically, we're just going to bear a much heavier and more painful brunt because we don't have the rest of the world with us. The fact that Trump single-handedly has turned America's back on the planet, has switched sides in a war for democracy in Europe, openly inviting Putin to do exactly what he just did yesterday in the attack on Kyiv, that belatedly Trump, who looks so fucking weak, saying, you got to stop this, Vladimir. The fact that he's done that, I keep thinking about the history books written, generations from now. People just will not be able to believe their eyes. There's just no way this happened. The most powerful country that has ever existed in the history of this world just destroyed itself, and the people let it happen. Now, that's one version of the story if we don't get it right. We just can't allow it to happen. Deep, deep damage is being done every single day, and it will continue until we stop it.
Amen. I don't even understand how the department store analogy works. We're tariffing their goods. What's China buying from us? Well, he probably doesn't buy anything for himself anymore. I don't think he understands how commerce works. Okay, Beto, I want to end here. I don't know, man. It seems like you might have another campaign in you. You don't sound like you don't sound like you want to pivot to podcasting like a lot of the other politicians out there. I have a lot of former politician competitors in the marketplace now, but you're sounding like, I don't know. You want to go do something. You got any plans?
I love being out there. I love being with people, whether I was in politics or had some other career or avocation, it had to be with people. And so, as I mentioned earlier, I'm happiest when I'm holding these town halls, when I'm registering people to vote, when I'm gathering with our volunteers. So whatever form that takes, possibly as a candidate, potentially just continuing to run, not just continuing to run. It's just an amazing organization running, powered by people. Helping, being useful in whatever way I can. I just think every other consideration has to fall by the wayside now for all of us. Your country and history are calling, and you have got to show up and give this every single thing you have. I think it's the only way we're going to overcome this. So I just wake up every day trying to just make sure that I stay on that track and remain open to the ways that I can help. So
I'm going to take that as a maybe.
Yeah,
I'm going to take absolutely. That as a maybe.
Yeah,
that's good. I like that. That's why. Just be honest about it. Who the fuck knows? We don't know. You're a young man. You're looking good still. Who knows? The future will take care of itself. Do you have a happy song to leave us with? You're not listening to sad music anymore. You're on the road a lot. Do you have a happy band or happy album? Happy tune?
You know what? I just put on Bob Dylan's New Morning last night, and that got me to a really, really, really good place. That whole album, including the song New Morning or The Man in Me. I love that one.
Man in Me is in Lebowski. It's a good one.
Yeah.
I haven't played that one in a
while.
When
he's drifting on the rug, right?
Yeah, I might need to do that and just drift off into a dream space for a little while this weekend before we get back into the fight on Monday. Beto, man, I really appreciate you. Will you come back and do it again soon?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and keep us posted for what's happening out there. Oh, wait, actually, I do. No, I have one more last thing. On your Substack, you've been doing 3 things that people can do or something like that. I don't have it in front of me, but you have a title like 3 things you can do this week or something like that.
Yeah.
Give us 3 things we can do this week.
So number one, the ACLU, we talked about kind of the bulwark that the federal courts have become for our country. The reason these cases are making it to these courts are the attorneys, many of them with the ACLU, who are bringing them to public attention and to trial. So the ACLU, which is operating in all 50 states, get behind them. Locally on the border, there's an organization called Las Americas. They're the ones who engage with many of these migrant families, mixed immigration status families, folks who live in our neighborhoods who are under attack by Trump right now. And again, if we fail to stand up for the least of us right now, they will come for the rest of us pretty soon. So Las Americas is a great organization. And the last one, if you're in the North Texas area, come join us in Denton on Saturday. We'll be there at 4 at Anderson's Brewery, and all comers welcome, Republican, Democrat, Independent, and everyone gets a shot at the microphone. So come be part of it. It's really something special when you see people come together this way, and it'll give you some hope. So I hope to see people out this weekend.
That's Beto O'Rourke. I appreciate you, brother. We'll be talking to you soon.
Adios.
Everybody else will be back on Monday with Bill Crystal. Peace.